fried okra sabzi is a sabzi vegetarian curry that you'll see across India. I love it, but there are a few tricks to making a beautiful okra curry, and we're going to go through those. First, let's talk about what it is. So, this is Bhindi or okra. It's a really accessible vegetable.
Yeah, so 500 grams.
It carries flavour very beautifully. Raw, it tastes something like a capsicum, like a green capsicum. What occurs with Bhindi and what puts some people off is there can be a sliminess when it's cooked very badly. So let's talk about tips for making Bhindi that's not slimy. Essentially what you need to do is when you buy it, you've got to bring it home and wash it, but then dry it completely before you refrigerate it or cook it, because any water in the okra will exacerbate that sliminess that naturally comes at the end of the mouthful. The other thing is to use a lot of oil, no water in cooking, and to use very high heat. So you're essentially caramelizing and cooking any of that viscous liquid in the Bhindi out. Buying Bhindi and buying okra, you want to look for fingers, essentially, that's what they're called, that are green and firm, and that there's not black when they start to go. If I can have a look here. So this one's getting a bit soft and it starts to blacken a little bit along its edges. I'd stay away from that kind of an okra and veer towards the sort of younger, more vibrant looking. First, I'm going to start by prepping the okra. So all we're doing is slicing it, not into thin slices, but just into sort of small chunks. And you can see as I'm slicing it, what people refer to as slime. You see that? So that's going to be fried off when it's cooked well. When it's not cooked well, that's what you're eating, like little snail's trails. I love how pretty the star shape is. It's so gorgeous. In terms of aromatics, we're going to work with a pretty basic combination. Mustard oil in the kadai, and we're going to use a kadai so that we'll get very high heat. And then just some garlic. So what I'm looking to make with this sort of masala is something that's pretty sulfuric and a little bit biting and a little bit spicy. So mustard oil in the kadai, like a nice half a cup. And then I'm going to pop it onto high heat. We're going to add the onion and garlic. But while that's happening, I'd like to talk about Sapna's garam masala. I was in Goa a couple of months back visiting my brother, and his landlord, Sapna, who is an incredible cook and used to bring breakfast up every morning, made one morning this incredible chickpea sabzi, and I went down to ask her what masala she'd used to make it. So it's a Konkani garam masala, but it's her family recipe. And how Sapna described it to me was that essentially garam masalas in this tradition, or in her regional tradition, are based upon the chilli. So they choose the chilli because there are like hundreds of different varieties of chilli, particularly in the south, and they'll choose the chilli, they choose how much chilli they want used, and then the chef that knows, or the spice master or mistress who knows what they're doing, builds the masala around that volume of chilli. So that's the starting point. So I'm going to do a tadka of ghee and add Sapna's garam masala and then stir it through the Bhindi at the finish. So this is warm enough now. So onion, garlic, hing, a little salt. I'm just going to start with a 2/3 teaspoon of salt and see how I go. I want to add the Bhindi in fairly early, but before I do that, some mustard seed. That's a good teaspoon, and we'll wait for that to pop. Okay, now I'm going to add the bhindi in. And I want this to fry. Okay. So you can see even, I don't know if you're close enough to see, but there is a little bit of slime that pulls here, like this bit here. So we're trying to cook this out. I am going to add a little bit of haldi or turmeric powder. A little bit of lal mirch chili, but only a fraction because the garam masala at the finish is actually, it's quite a lot. And then a bit of cumin seed as well. I'm gonna make sure this is all nice and brown and give it a taste. If you need to get more heat into the vegetable, one of the ways to do it so it doesn't stew is to have it climb the sides of the kadai, like this. Because as the produce all settles in the bottom, essentially what you're doing is you just, the heat becomes stifled by the volume of produce on top. So this way we're dispersing and it allows the kadai to stay hotter. I'm going to let it brown up a bit, just not move it too much. One of the benefits of video recipe, there's quite a lot that goes into the dish in terms of stirring or how it's stirred or how it's not stirred. And being able to watch this aspect of it is quite important. If you were to just stand here and keep stirring, essentially what you're doing is you're stewing the bhindi, which is precisely what you don't want to be doing. By letting it sit in the oil and sit up the sides of the kadai and just rest on its own, it's going to caramelize and catch, and then we'll stir it through and reorganize, I guess, the positioning, so it's getting browned on all sides. And I'm starting to smell the browning, which is perfect. So again, this is one of those Indian vegetarian curries that is vegan until I add the ghee tadka at the finish. So if you did want to keep it vegan, you could do this in mustard oil or coconut oil. I do want to try it at this point. Yummy. Salt's good. The heat's nice. Now while that's finishing, I am going to quickly smash together a little tadka of Sapna's garam masala in ghee. So it's starting to temper now. With ghee, it kind of gets this beautiful foamy bubble. That's good. Oh, that looks amazing. Done. Smells incredible, looks absolutely stunning. All right, I can't wait to get into this. So bhindi, sabji, fried okra. Yum. That addition of Sapna's garam masala puts this incredible top note over the whole dish. So the spicing is really simple through the sabji itself. And you still taste the okra really clearly, but it's like a little bit of goa in my spoon. No, it's beautiful, really beautifully balanced. It is almost velvety in terms of texture and taste. That's really spectacular.